Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching, or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. Before we delve into the rich, complex tapestry of Song of Solomon, it's vital to understand its profound significance within American literature and the oeuvre of its masterful author, Toni Morrison. Published in 1977, this novel cemented Morrison's reputation as a literary giant, winning the National Book Critics Circle Award and becoming one of her most celebrated works. It is a sprawling, multi-generational epic that defies easy categorization, blending realism with magical realism, historical commentary with mythic storytelling. Song of Solomon is not merely a story, it is an excavation of Black American history, identity, and the intricate ways in which the past shapes the present. The book's core significance lies in its ambitious exploration of African American masculinity, the search for identity and belonging, the complexities of family history, and the enduring power of myth and folklore within a community. It delves into themes of racial oppression, economic disparity, the quest for freedom, and the spiritual yearning for flight. Morrison masterfully weaves together the personal narratives of her characters with the broader historical currents of 20th century America, from the Great Migration to the lingering trauma of slavery. While widely acclaimed, some controversies, or more accurately, deep literary discussions, have centered on its intricate narrative structure, its challenging symbolism, and its unflinching portrayal of sometimes problematic characters and their choices. Yet, it is precisely this complexity and Morrison's lyrical, evocative prose that elevate Song of Solomon to the status of a timeless classic, inviting readers to grapple with its layers of meaning. Prepare to be immersed in a narrative that sings of heritage, struggle, and the ultimate pursuit of self-knowledge. Our sprawling narrative in Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon commences with an unforgettable and deeply symbolic event that immediately sets the tone for the magical realism and profound inquiry into Black American identity that will permeate the entire novel. The year is 1931, and we are introduced to the unusual and startling figure of an insurance agent named Robert Smith. It's a cold winter day in a city identified only as Michigan, standing on the rooftop of No. 7 Caroline Street, a house that will become central to our story. Smith, dressed impeccably in a 3-piece suit, is attempting to fly from the roof of Mercy Hospital, a desperate and ultimately futile act that he believes will allow him to fly away home. His attempt is a spectacle that draws a crowd of bewildered onlookers from the predominantly Black community, a collective gasp as he plunges to his death. This opening scene is not merely a dramatic hook, it's a foundational metaphor for the entire novel, introducing the pervasive, almost mythical desire for flight and freedom that runs through generations of the novel's characters, symbolizing both escape from oppression and the yearning for spiritual transcendence, even if it leads to physical demise. The crowd gathered below includes our central family, the Deads, and their neighbors, providing our first glimpse into their complex lives. Macon Dead Jr., a prominent and deeply embittered landowner and real estate agent, is there, along with his long-suffering wife, Ruth Foster Dead, and their two eldest daughters, Lena and Corinthians. The scene is observed by the wider community, setting the stage for the intricate web of relationships, grudges, and unspoken histories that define this Black neighborhood in Michigan. The onlookers' reactions range from shock to cynical amusement, offering a collective portrait of a community shaped by its own struggles and aspirations. It is precisely at this moment, amidst the chaos and spectacle of Smith's suicidal leap, that Ruth Foster Dead goes into labor. Ruth is a woman marked by a pervasive sadness, a quiet desperation that stems from her oppressive marriage to Macon Dead Jr. She is the daughter of a respected Black doctor, Dr. Foster, a man whose professional success and middle-class aspirations contrasted sharply with the harsh realities faced by many Black Americans. Ruth's background as a doctor's daughter provides her with a certain genteel upbringing, but also leaves her ill-equipped to handle the emotional cruelty and cold ambition of her husband. Her character is defined by a sense of stifled life, often finding solace in small, private acts of rebellion or comfort. And so, into this charged atmosphere, Milkman Dead is born. His birth is overshadowed by the bizarre events of the day, his entry into the world marked by a sense of ominous peculiarity. He is the first Black child to be born at Mercy Hospital, a symbolic marker of a changing era. Yet his birth is also tinged with the memory of flight and death. The nickname Milkman is acquired in childhood, an embarrassing moniker bestowed upon him after his mother is seen publicly breastfeeding him at an unusually old age. This nickname, initially a source of humiliation, eventually becomes a central identifier for him, hinting at his protracted dependence and the unusual relationship he shares with his mother. From the very beginning, Milkman is set apart, defined by his unusual birth, his curious nickname, and the looming presence of his emotionally stunted father. The opening chapters then delve into Milkman's early childhood, characterizing him as a somewhat detached and unobservant boy, largely insulated by his family's relative prosperity, but suffocated by the emotional vacuum within his home. His father, Macon Dead Jr., is obsessed with property and money, having built a substantial empire through ruthless real estate dealings. Macon's own history is one of deep-seated trauma, having witnessed the violent murder of his own father, the original Macon Dead, at a young age, and the subsequent theft of their land. This trauma has hardened him, transforming him into a man who believes only in the accumulation of wealth and property as a means of control and security. He is emotionally distant from his children, particularly Milkman, and often cruel to his wife, creating a joyless and oppressive atmosphere within their lavish home. The tension between Macon and Ruth, driven by his contempt for her and her quiet defiance, permeates Milkman's upbringing, shaping his internal landscape and contributing to his sense of aimlessness and dissatisfaction. This intricate family dynamic, interwoven with the lingering myth of flight and freedom, sets the stage for Milkman's coming-of-age journey, a quest for identity that will ultimately lead him far from his childhood home and deep into the hidden corners of his family's rich and complex history. As Milkman Dead grows from a peculiar boy into a detached young man, Toni Morrison meticulously crafts the oppressive environment of the Dead household, illuminating the profound psychological impact it has on him. His father, Macon dead Jr., is a tyrannical patriarch, obsessed with the accumulation of wealth and property. For Macon, money and land are the ultimate forms of power and security, a direct response to the traumatic loss of his own family's land and the murder of his father during his youth. He is a man consumed by bitterness, perpetually locked in a cold, calculating pursuit of material possessions. His emotional barrenness poisons the atmosphere of the grand house, creating a suffocating lack of warmth and joy. He treats his wife, Ruth, with thinly veiled contempt, viewing her as an impediment to his ambitions, and he maintains a strict, often cruel control over his daughters, Lena and Corinthians, who are forced into lives of frustrated domesticity. Milkman's mother, Ruth, trapped in this loveless marriage, finds solace in small, often eccentric, acts of quiet defiance. Her most poignant and controversial act of affection involves her persistent, prolonged breastfeeding of Milkman, extending into his childhood, which earns him the demeaning nickname Milkman from his peers. This act is not merely a maternal bond. It's a desperate attempt by Ruth to assert control over at least one aspect of her life and to retain a singular connection, however unusual, with her only son, whom she perceives as her sole source of joy and purpose in an otherwise desolate existence. The nickname itself becomes a symbol of Milkman's protracted dependence, his lingering immaturity, and his inability to forge an independent identity early in his life. He is emotionally dependent, seeking comfort and validation from others, but ultimately finding himself unfulfilled. The stark contrast between Milkman's privileged yet emotionally impoverished life and the vibrant, communal spirit of the neighborhood outside their house is a central theme. While the dead family lives in the grandest house on Not Doctor Street, a nickname given by the community in defiance of white authority, they are largely isolated from the rich cultural tapestry and resilience of the Black community around them. Milkman spends his formative years observing life from a distance, feeling a sense of alienation despite his material comforts. He is passive, unmotivated, and often self-centered, struggling to find purpose beyond the expectations set by his father. His lack of direction is evident in his aimless wanderings, his casual relationships, and his general disinterest in the struggles of others. He desires independence, but lacks the initiative to truly pursue it, trapped in a gilded cage of his father's making. A pivotal relationship in Milkman's early life is with his best friend, Guitar Baines. Guitar is Milkman's foil, passionate, politically conscious, and deeply concerned with racial justice. Raised in poverty and having endured personal tragedy, Guitar possesses a sharp intellect and a fierce commitment to fighting racial oppression. He is a member of the 7 Days, a secret society dedicated to avenging racial injustices against Black people by committing retaliatory murders against white individuals. Guitar's revolutionary fervor and his understanding of the systemic nature of racial oppression challenge Milkman's privileged detachment, forcing him to confront the harsher realities of the world outside his insulated home. Their friendship is a complex blend of loyalty, intellectual sparring, and simmering resentment, with Guitar often pushing Milkman to think beyond himself. The contrast between Milkman's internal stagnation and Guitar's outward activism highlights Milkman's central struggle, his quest for identity. He feels a profound sense of incompleteness, a yearning for something more substantial than his father's materialistic pursuits or his mother's suffocating love. He longs to fly, echoing Robert Smith's opening act, but his metaphorical wings are clipped by his own inertia and the emotional baggage of his family history. He is searching for a narrative, a connection to a past that explains who he is and where he comes from, a past that his father has deliberately obscured. This longing for self-discovery and the desire to break free from the suffocating confines of his family's legacy propel Milkman towards the adventures and revelations that will ultimately redefine his understanding of himself and his place in the broader tapestry of Black American history and mythology. As Milkman enters adulthood, his emotional stagnation and profound aimlessness become increasingly pronounced. Despite his privileged upbringing, he feels an acute sense of dissatisfaction, a lack of purpose that manifests as a general detachment from his own life and the lives of those around him. He is a passive observer, drifting through his 20s with a casual disregard for consequences, failing to connect deeply with others or to pursue any meaningful ambitions of his own. His relationship with his father, Macon Jr., remains cold and transactional, dominated by Macon's constant emphasis on property and money. Milkman resents his father's emotional cruelty and materialistic obsession, yet he also remains financially dependent on him, perpetuating a cycle of resentment and stagnation. He longs for freedom, but lacks the initiative to truly break away, caught in a gilded cage of his father's making. A significant romantic relationship in Milkman's early adult life is with Hagar, his cousin and Pilate's granddaughter. Hagar is fiercely devoted to Milkman, her love for him bordering on obsessive. She is a woman of intense passions, whose self-worth becomes entirely wrapped up in Milkman's affection. For 12 years, their relationship is characterized by Milkman's casual acceptance of her devotion, his enjoyment of her body, but a complete inability to reciprocate the depth of her feelings. He views her as a convenience, taking her love for granted and offering her only intermittent attention. This emotional imbalance ultimately proves devastating for Hagar, who, consumed by her unrequited love and Milkman's growing indifference, descends into a profound mental and emotional decline. Her desperation culminates in repeated, violent attempts to kill him, followed by dramatic, self-destructive acts aimed at winning back his attention, highlighting the destructive power of unrequited love and the tragic consequences of Milkman's emotional callousness. Hagar's tragic descent into madness and her eventual death serve as a harsh awakening for Milkman, forcing him to confront the devastating impact of his own detachment and emotional neglect. Her death is a pivotal moment, shattering his complacency and forcing him to reflect on his actions and his profound inability to genuinely connect with others. It is the first truly significant loss he experiences, and it forces him to reckon with the consequences of his self-centeredness, the suffering he witnesses in Hagar, and the raw grief of Pilate finally pierce his emotional armor, initiating a slow process of introspection and a nascent desire for self-improvement. He begins to question the meaning of his own life and the values he has implicitly adopted from his father. The profound influence of Pilate dead, Milkman's aunt, and Macon, JR's estranged sister, becomes increasingly central to the narrative. Pilate is an extraordinary figure, a spiritual anchor for the Black community, embodying a deep connection to African American folklore, intuition, and an unburdened sense of self. Unlike her brother, Macon, who is obsessed with material wealth, Pilate lives a simple life, untethered by possessions, driven by an inherent moral compass and a profound connection to nature and her ancestral roots. She has no navel, a physical peculiarity that symbolizes her unique position outside conventional society, her almost mythic existence. Her home, a bustling, welcoming space filled with music, laughter, and the distinct smell of ginger, stands in stark contrast to the cold, suffocating atmosphere of Macon's house. Pilate offers Milkman a glimpse into an alternative way of living, a world where spiritual wealth and communal bonds supersede material possessions. Pilate's wisdom, her storytelling, and her unshakable connection to the oral traditions of her ancestors intrigue Milkman. He is drawn to her energy, her freedom, and the sense of authenticity she exudes, which are entirely absent in his own life. Pilate serves as a crucial catalyst for Milkman's journey of self-discovery, subtly nudging him towards a deeper understanding of his family's past and his own identity. Her stories, her songs, and her very being provide clues to the mysteries of the dead family, hinting at a hidden legacy of flight and a deep connection to their ancestral origins. It is through his interactions with Pilate that Milkman begins to feel a faint stirring of purpose, a nascent desire to understand the buried truths of his lineage, setting him on a path that will lead him far from Michigan and deep into the heart of his family's complex history. Driven by a profound sense of emptiness and the catalyst of Hager's tragic death, Milkman's quest for identity takes a decisive turn towards the mystery of his family's past, a journey subtly orchestrated by his formidable aunt, Pilate. Macon dead Jr., Milkman's father, holds a secret. He believes his deceased father, the original Macon dead, left behind a hidden cache of gold, rumored to be concealed in a cave near their ancestral land in Shalimar, Virginia. This gold, for Macon, represents the ultimate validation of his life's work, the tangible proof of his family's stolen legacy and his own relentless pursuit of wealth. He shares this long-held obsession with Milkman, hoping that his son will embark on a quest to retrieve it. For Milkman, however, the idea of the gold is less about monetary gain and more about an escape from his suffocating life, a tangible purpose that promises to alleviate his profound aimlessness. The physical journey promises a symbolic liberation from his father's oppressive shadow. Milkman's departure from Michigan marks his true separation from the emotional and financial stagnation of his parents' home. He is seeking a different kind of wealth, not just gold, but the intangible riches of self-knowledge and ancestral connection. His journey first takes him to Danville, Pennsylvania, a town steeped in the history of the Great Migration and the experiences of Black communities who moved north seeking better lives. Here, he begins to piece together fragments of his family's narrative, encountering individuals who knew his father and Pilate when they were young. He learns about their childhood, their struggles after their father's murder, and the profound bond they shared before their bitter estrangement. This initial leg of the journey begins to fill in the blank spaces of his family tree, offering him a glimpse into the raw, formative experiences that shaped his parents. The quest then leads him deeper into the American South, to the rural, almost mythical town of Shalimar, Virginia. This small, isolated community, untouched by the rapid industrialization of the North, is crucial to Milkman's awakening. Shalamar is a place where oral tradition thrives, where history is kept alive through songs, stories, and the collective memory of its inhabitants. It is a world far removed from the cold, materialistic rationality of Macon dead Jr.'s life. Here, Milkman is initially a stranger, an outsider from the North, seen with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity by the close-knit community. He attempts to find the gold, following his father's vague directions, but his efforts are clumsy and ultimately fruitless. The physical search for gold slowly transforms into a metaphorical search for his roots, as the land itself and the stories it holds begin to speak to him in ways he never anticipated. In Shalamar, Milkman encounters a vibrant community that challenges his urban detachment. He meets Circe, an ancient, almost spectral black woman who served as a midwife for his grandmother and was present during his grandfather's murder. Circe, living in a dilapidated mansion, is a keeper of old knowledge, a living link to the past. Her stories, though fragmented and cryptic, provide vital clues about Milkman's paternal grandparents and the circumstances of his grandfather's death. She reveals details about his family's acquisition of the land, hinting at the violence and injustice that marked their early history. These revelations begin to chip away at Milkman's preconceived notions of his family, particularly his father's narrative of his origins. The search for the gold, though ultimately a red herring in terms of material wealth, serves as the vehicle for Milkman's true quest, understanding his lineage. The treasure he is truly seeking is not gold, but the rich, complex tapestry of his family history, particularly the story of his paternal grandparents, Macon dead Sr. and Singh. He begins to understand the profound connection between his family's past and his own persistent sense of aimlessness. The stories, the land, and the people of Shalamar become his true guides, leading him further into the heart of his heritage. This journey into the South marks a pivotal turning point for Milkman, pushing him out of his self-imposed emotional shell and towards a deeper, more spiritual understanding of his identity, forcing him to confront the ancestral echoes that have shaped his present existence, and ultimately leading him towards the magical and tragic story of his great-grandfather, Solomon, the legendary flying African. Milkman's journey into Shalamar, Virginia, continues to strip away his northern detachment and privileged aloofness, forcing him into a deeper, more visceral engagement with the Black Southern experience and his own ancestral past. His initial pursuit of gold, the tangible treasure his father so desperately coveted, quickly becomes a futile exercise. The physical landscape of Shalamar, with its dense forests, hidden caves, and ancient houses, begins to reveal itself as a living repository of history, far more valuable than any gold. Milkman's attempts to navigate this unfamiliar terrain, his struggles with hunting and tracking, and his general ineptitude in a rural environment highlight his profound disconnection from nature and the self-sufficiency that defines the lives of the Shalamar residents. He is an outsider, defined by his city clothes, his urban mannerisms, and his materialistic outlook, all of which clash sharply with the community's communal spirit and their deep respect for the land and its history. It is during this period that Milkman encounters a number of pivotal characters who serve as guides and mirrors, reflecting aspects of his heritage and forcing him to confront his own shortcomings. Foremost among them is Calvin, an older black man who possesses an intimate knowledge of the local landscape and its hidden stories. Calvin, along with other men of the community, invites Milkman on a hunt, an experience that proves transformative. This is no mere recreational activity. It is a ritualistic passage, a deep immersion into the rhythms of nature and the camaraderie of men united by shared purpose and an ancient tradition. Milkman, initially clumsy and out of place, is forced to shed his urban pretenses and rely on his instincts. The hunt is physically demanding, pushing him to his limits, but it is also a profound spiritual awakening. Surrounded by the sounds of the forest, the calls of the animals, and the shared silence of the hunters, Milkman begins to hear the land in a new way, to feel a connection to something ancient and profound that transcends his individual existence. The men's respect for the animals, their knowledge of the forest, and their easy camaraderie teach Milkman about a different kind of strength, one rooted in humility and connection, rather than his father's aggressive accumulation. Through his interactions with Calvin and the other hunters, Milkman begins to hear fragments of songs and stories, whispers of a past that he gradually realizes are more significant than any hidden gold. These are not just casual tales. They are the oral histories of the community, passed down through generations, often encoded in seemingly simple rhymes and melodies. The songs speak of people who could fly, of extraordinary feats of escape and resilience, of journeys undertaken for freedom. Milkman, initially dismissive of these folkloric elements, slowly realizes their profound importance. He learns about a legendary figure named Solomon, a man said to have flown back to Africa from this very place, leaving his children behind. This legend, dismissed by his rational mind, begins to resonate with a deeper, intuitive part of him, stirring a nascent curiosity about its historical basis. Crucially, Milkman also meets Omar, a knowledgeable elder in the community, and Lena's acquaintance, who possesses a deeper understanding of the local history and folklore. It is through these conversations and the persistent rhythm of the children's rhymes that Milkman starts to piece together the identity of his great-grandfather, a figure shrouded in myth and family secrets. The children's song, a seemingly innocent nursery rhyme, contains the genealogy of his family, the names of his ancestors, and hints at their extraordinary past. The repetitive verses, chanted playfully by the children, carry the weight of generations of oral history, a direct link to his forgotten lineage. Milkman, initially frustrated by the seemingly childish nature of the song, begins to transcribe it, slowly deciphering its hidden meanings. This growing understanding of his ancestral roots brings about a significant internal transformation in Milkman. He sheds his superficiality and egocentricity, beginning to feel a sense of belonging and a profound connection to something larger than himself. The lessons he learns in Shalimar about community, about history, about respect for the land, and for life begin to heal the emotional wounds inflicted by his sterile upbringing. He realizes that the true treasure is not the gold his father sought, but the rich, complex, and often painful history of his family, particularly the mythical tale of Solomon, the flying African, The journey to Shalimar thus becomes a spiritual pilgrimage, a stripping away of superficiality, and a deep dive into the very soul of his heritage, setting the stage for the powerful revelations that will redefine his understanding of identity, freedom, and the enduring legacy of flight in the Black American narrative. As Milkman's understanding of his family's history deepens in Shalimar, Virginia, his personal transformation accelerates, marked by a profound shift from a detached observer to an active seeker of knowledge. The clues he gathers fragments of stories, the children's persistent rhymes about Solomon, and the cryptic insights from elders like Calvin and Omar begin to coalesce into a powerful, if still incomplete, narrative. He realizes that the gold his father sought was a mere distraction, a material substitute for the invaluable treasure of their lineage. The real wealth lies in the untold stories, the forgotten names, and the enduring spirit of his ancestors. He becomes less focused on the physical search for a hidden cave and more attuned to the oral traditions that keep the past alive in this close-knit Southern community. A pivotal moment in Milkman's enlightenment occurs when he encounters the honor of his great-grandfather. He learns that the children's rhyme, which he had initially dismissed as childish nonsense, actually details the journey and the extraordinary feat of a man named Solomon, who was said to have flown from Africa to America, and then, ultimately, back again, leaving behind his vast family. This legend, deeply embedded in the community's collective memory, is treated not as a mere fairy tale, but as a fundamental truth, a testament to the resilience and spiritual freedom of their ancestors. Milkman learns specific details from the song, the names of Solomon's children, the path he took, and the circumstances of his flight. He begins to see that the flight is not just a metaphor for escape from slavery, but a literal, mythical event that defines his family's genesis. The weight of this history, the realization that he is descended from a man who could defy gravity, both fascinates and humbles him, connecting him to a heroic and deeply spiritual past that stands in stark contrast to his father's materialistic present. This period in Shalimar is also crucial for Milkman's moral development. He begins to shed the selfish, opportunistic traits he inherited from his father. His encounters with the community force him to confront his own emotional shallowness and the hurt he has inflicted on others, particularly Hagar. The collective spirit of Shalimar, the interconnectedness of its people, and their shared history of survival and resilience provide Milkman with a powerful counter-narrative to his upbringing. He sees individuals living lives of dignity and purpose, often with fewer material possessions, but richer emotional and spiritual lives. He observes the strong communal bonds, the mutual support, and the deep respect for elders and ancestors. This stark contrast awakens a sense of shame and regret within him, motivating him to actively seek redemption for his past actions and to forge a new path for himself, one rooted in connection and empathy rather than isolation and greed. The narrative reveals the complex, often painful, history of Solomon's flight. He was a slave who, according to the legend, flew back to Africa, but in doing so, dropped his youngest child, Jake, who would become Milkman's grandfather, and left behind his wife, Rena, and his numerous other children. This act of flight is thus presented with a profound dual meaning. It is a powerful symbol of liberation and transcendence, but also an act of abandonment, a severing of ties that left a lasting legacy of pain and separation. This nuanced portrayal complicates the simple narrative of heroic escape, forcing Milkman to grapple with the complex legacy of his ancestors, both their strengths and their flaws. The song that the children sing embodies this duality, a joyful celebration of freedom intertwined with a melancholic acknowledgement of loss. Milkman's focus shifts entirely from finding gold to collecting every available piece of information about his ancestors. He meticulously pores over old records, speaks to every elder who will share a story, and listens intently to every variation of the children's song. He finds the names of Solomon's wife, Rena, and the names of his children, all encoded within the verses. He uncovers the truth about his grandfather, Jake, being the abandoned child. This detailed genealogical excavation, conducted through oral tradition and community memory rather than dusty archives, represents Milkman's true coming of age. He is no longer just Milkman, defined by a childish nickname and his father's oppressive shadow. He is Milkman, the descendant of Solomon, a link in a long, powerful chain of history. The journey into Shalimar is not just a geographical shift, but a spiritual odyssey, leading him to a profound understanding of who he is, where he comes from, and the enduring, often painful, legacy of flight and belonging in the narrative of African American identity, providing him with a sense of purpose and direction he has long sought, a path that will ultimately lead him back to Michigan to confront his past and truly embody his newfound self. Armed with his newfound knowledge of Solomon, the legendary flying ancestor, and the fragmented but powerful oral history of Shalimar, Milkman's journey transforms from a self-serving quest for gold into a profound pilgrimage of self-discovery and ancestral connection. The community of Shalimar, with its deep-rooted traditions and its collective memory, has acted as a catalyst, shaking him out of his prolonged stagnation. He has begun to truly listen, not just to the words, but to the echoes of the past embedded in the songs and stories. His encounters with the elders and the children, particularly their unceasing chant of Solomon's flight, have etched his true lineage into his consciousness. The shame and discomfort that once clung to him, born from his privileged yet emotionally barren upbringing, start to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of pride and a yearning for deeper understanding. He realizes that the real treasure was never a material one, but the intricate, living tapestry of his family's history, a narrative woven with threads of flight, loss, resilience, and profound spiritual yearning. Milkman now understands that his family's formal, almost bureaucratic name, Dead, was itself an arbitrary imposition, a cruel misnaming by a white Union soldier during the chaos of the post-Civil War era. His grandfather, Jake, was given the surname Dead on a bureaucratic form, a dehumanizing act that stripped him and his descendants of their true lineage. This realization is crucial for Milkman. It highlights the pervasive power of white authority to erase Black identity and history, but also the enduring power of Black communities to preserve their true names and stories through oral tradition, through songs and rhymes that defy official records. The revelation of Solomon and the names of his children in the children's song provides Milkman with a powerful counter-narrative to the Dead name, offering him a sense of belonging to a lineage that predates and defies the structures of oppression. He now recognizes that the name Dead is a symbol of the spiritual and historical death imposed upon his family, a void he must fill with the vibrant life of his true ancestry. The emotional impact of this genealogical discovery is immense. Milkman begins to feel a profound empathy for his ancestors, particularly for Solomon, who chose freedom but left a legacy of abandonment. He understands the duality of his great-grandfather's actions, the triumph of flight intertwined with the tragedy of leaving behind his family. This complexity teaches Milkman a vital lesson about the nuances of freedom and the often painful choices inherent in the pursuit of liberation. He begins to see his own past actions, particularly his casual abandonment of Hagar, in a harsher, more critical light. The realization that he, too, has been a kind of flyer, emotionally detaching himself from those who loved him, brings a wave of remorse and a desperate desire for redemption. He understands that true freedom is not just about escaping limitations, but about embracing responsibility and connection. As Milkman prepares to leave Shalimar, his transformation is nearly complete. He has shed the last vestiges of his self-centeredness and is replaced by a man eager to connect, to understand, and to heal. He carries with him not gold, but a far richer treasure, the knowledge of his ancestral past, the names of his great-grandparents, the story of Solomon, and the wisdom gleaned from the people of Shalimar. He has learned to listen to the rhythms of the land, to the echoes of history, and to the voices of a community that sustained its identity through generations of hardship. This deep connection to his roots instills in him a sense of purpose and belonging that had eluded him his entire life. The land of Shalimar itself, a character in its own right, has imbued him with its spirit, its resilience, and its ancient wisdom, preparing him for the challenges and revelations that still await him back in Michigan. However, Milkman's newfound clarity and sense of purpose are tragically juxtaposed with the parallel and far darker journey of his childhood friend, Guitar Baines. While Milkman has been on a spiritual quest for identity, Guitar has descended deeper into the zealous, vengeful ideology of the 7 days. Convinced that Milkman has found the gold and intends to keep it for himself, Guitar's paranoia and racial bitterness intensify. He believes that Milkman's search for wealth is a betrayal of their shared racial struggle, an act of selfish capitalism that undermines the collective liberation Guitar champions. Guitar's belief system, rooted in a twisted sense of racial justice, demands retaliatory violence, a balance for every Black life taken by white oppressors. His suspicions about Milkman are fueled by his own experiences of racial injustice and his growing disillusionment with any form of progress that does not involve radical, violent retribution. Guitar's path serves as a grim counterpoint to Milkman's redemptive journey, illustrating how the wounds of oppression can fester into self-destructive rage and paranoia, driving a wedge between former friends and ultimately setting them on a collision course. Milkman's return to Michigan is fraught with both a profound sense of self and an unsettling awareness of the escalating danger posed by Guitar Baines. He carries the weight and illumination of his ancestral discoveries from Shalimar, his head now filled with the names of his flying ancestors, the rhythm of the children's song, and a newfound spiritual groundedness. The old, aimless milkman has been largely shed, replaced by a man with purpose and an emerging capacity for empathy. He returns eager to share his findings with Pilate, understanding that she, more than anyone else, embodies the spiritual and historical connection to their family's past. He knows that her intuitive wisdom will allow her to understand the profound significance of the stories he has unearthed, stories that she, in her own way, has always carried within her. However, the reunion with Guitar is anything but joyous. Guitar, consumed by his belief that Milkman has found and selfishly hoarded the legendary gold, confronts him with a chilling intensity. His paranoia has reached a fever pitch, fueled by the conviction that Milkman's newfound enlightenment is merely a cover for his material greed. Guitar's warped sense of justice, honed by the extreme ideology of the 7 days, sees Milkman's perceived betrayal as a heinous crime against their race, a betrayal of the collective struggle. The former bond of friendship is now severely strained, replaced by suspicion and a deep, ideological chasm. Guitar believes he must avenge this perceived wrong, not just for himself, but for the countless racial injustices that have shaped his worldview. He has become a hunter, focused on his former friend, driven by a violent, misguided sense of purpose that tragically mirrors Milkman's earlier aimlessness, but with far more destructive potential. The narrative reveals the tragic irony of Guitar's misjudgment. Milkman never found the gold, and his transformation in Shalimar was entirely spiritual. The true treasure he unearthed was intangible: the stories, the names, the knowledge of his ancestral flight. Guitar, trapped in his materialist interpretation of treasure and consumed by the vengeful logic of the 7 days, is blind to Milkman's true growth and the profound nature of his discovery. This misunderstanding creates a deep pathos, as two men, once friends, are now on an inevitable collision course, each operating from a profoundly different understanding of justice, wealth, and liberation. Guitar's inability to see beyond the material is a tragic consequence of the very system he fights against, showing how oppression can distort even the noblest intentions. The conflict between Milkman and Guitar symbolizes the broader tensions within the Black community regarding the path to liberation. Whether it lies in radical, retaliatory violence, Guitar's 7 days approach, or in the quieter, more internal journey of self-discovery, historical reclamation, and spiritual understanding, Milkman's newfound path. Morrison masterfully uses their fractured friendship to explore these complex ideological debates without offering simplistic answers. Both characters are deeply flawed products of their environment, struggling to find meaning and justice in a world marked by historical trauma and systemic oppression. Guitar's actions, however extreme, stem from a legitimate pain and a desire for accountability, even if his methods are ultimately self-destructive and misdirected. The story culminates in a tense, perilous chase as Guitar relentlessly pursues Milkman, convinced that he is owed the gold and that Milkman must pay for his perceived treachery. This pursuit pushes Milkman to his physical and emotional limits, forcing him to draw upon the inner strength and resilience he cultivated in Shalimar. The chase is not merely a physical one. It is a test of Milkman's newfound identity, a final confrontation with the demons of his past, both his own prior self-centeredness and the external forces of violence and misunderstanding that threaten to consume him. He must face the consequences of his actions and the volatile nature of a world shaped by generations of unaddressed pain. The pursuit highlights the brutal realities of their existence, where even familial bonds can be shattered by misunderstanding, and the corrosive effects of systemic injustice. The stage is set for a final, climactic confrontation that will determine not only Milkman's fate, but also offer a poignant, if ambiguous, commentary on the enduring legacy of flight and the true meaning of freedom in the face of profound struggle. The final act of Song of Solomon brings Milkman's journey full circle, drawing him back to the very place where his life's meaning began to unravel, and where it must now find its resolution: Macon dead JR's office. The pursuit by Guitar Baines, relentless and fueled by a tragic misunderstanding, culminates in a desperate confrontation that tests Milkman's newfound strength and understanding. Guitar's belief that Milkman has betrayed him by finding and keeping the legendary gold, which Guitar sees as a rightful collective inheritance for their race, drives him to the brink of violent retribution. This is not merely a personal vendetta. It is an ideological clash, a culmination of Guitar's belief in the necessity of violent, retaliatory justice to balance the scales of racial oppression against Milkman's burgeoning understanding of a more profound, ancestral form of freedom. The tension is palpable, as two men who were once like brothers now stand on opposite sides of a chasm forged by historical trauma and divergent paths to liberation. In his desperate attempt to escape Guitar, Milkman is forced to confront the harsh realities of his family's past, particularly the violence and deceit that marked his father's relentless pursuit of wealth. He pieces together the full story of his grandfather's murder and the theft of their land, confirming the fragments he heard in Shalimar. He realizes that the original Macon dead, his grandfather, was not merely a prosperous farmer, but a man who built his life with ingenuity and hard work, only to have it violently stripped away by white greed. The revelation that Guitar is now replicating this cycle of violence, albeit with a different target, and for a different, albeit misguided, cause, is a tragic irony that deepens Milkman's understanding of the pervasive nature of hatred and its capacity to consume even those who claim to fight for justice. Milkman understands that Guitar's anger, while stemming from legitimate racial grievances, has morphed into a destructive force that threatens to erase the very connections he has just discovered. The culmination of Milkman's physical journey is inextricably linked to his spiritual transformation. He finds himself drawn to a cave near the old family land, a place shrouded in mystery and folklore, rumored to hold the gold. This cave, which symbolizes both the hidden treasures of his family's past and the dark secrets of their traumas, becomes the ultimate stage for his reckoning. He does not find gold, but he finds something far more precious, a deeper connection to his roots. The landscape itself, the very dirt and trees of his ancestral home, seems to speak to him, echoing the stories he heard in Shalimar. He perceives the ghostly presence of his ancestors, particularly his grandfather, and feels the weight of their struggles and their resilience. This spiritual communion with the land and the spirits of his forebears is a profound moment of grounding, allowing him to finally feel truly connected to something larger than himself. something that transcends the material world. It is in this liminal space, this sacred ground of his ancestors, that Milkman finds himself truly alone, stripped of his previous illusions and dependencies. He reflects on his life, on his casual cruelty to Hagar, on his coldness towards his sisters, and on his emotional distance from his parents. This introspection is painful but necessary, allowing him to acknowledge his past failings and to fully embrace the transformative power of his journey. He understands that his quest for freedom was not about escaping responsibility, but about embracing it, embracing the legacy of his ancestors, taking responsibility for his own actions, and understanding his place within the larger tapestry of Black American history. He is no longer the Milkman defined by his childhood nickname and arrested development, but a man coming into his own, capable of love, empathy, and courage. The ultimate confrontation between Milkman and guitar, infused with the weight of their fractured friendship and the divergent paths they have chosen, occurs near the fabled cave. This final showdown is steeped in a desperate, almost primal intensity. Guitar, consumed by his mission, believes he is enacting a righteous retribution, while Milkman, newly enlightened, seeks to break the cycle of violence and misunderstanding. The clash is not just physical. It is a battle for their very souls, a representation of the struggle between destructive rage and transformative understanding. The setting, steeped in ancestral memory, adds a layer of mythical significance to their personal conflict, suggesting that their individual struggles are part of a larger, ongoing narrative of Black American experience, a continuous struggle for liberation and self-definition in the face of enduring historical injustices. The climax of Song of Solomon is a moment of profound ambiguity and potent symbolism, leaving Milkman's ultimate fate open to interpretation, yet powerfully affirming his complete transformation. The final confrontation with Guitar Baines, steeped in the tragic misunderstanding about the gold and the bitter ideological divide, escalates to a point of no return. Guitar, blinded by his vengeful mission and convinced of Milkman's betrayal, aims to kill his former friend. This act of violence, born from a distorted sense of justice, underscores the destructive power of hatred and the tragic consequences of allowing historical trauma to fester into all-consuming rage. The scene is set in the wild, ancestral landscape near the cave, a place where the spirits of Milkman's forebears seem to hover, bearing witness to this devastating clash between two men whose lives were shaped by the same oppressive forces, but who chose wildly divergent paths to navigate their pain. In this moment of ultimate peril, Milkman's complete metamorphosis is revealed. He does not fight Guitar with anger or vengeance, but with an almost spiritual acceptance, an understanding that transcends the personal. He has shed his fear of death, having embraced his ancestral legacy and found a profound connection to the land and the spirits of his flying forebears. Instead of a desperate scramble for survival, Milkman's actions are imbued with a sense of purpose and a profound, almost mystical courage. He makes a leap, both literal and metaphorical. He leaps towards Guitar, not in an act of aggression, but in an embrace, a gesture of profound acceptance, and perhaps a final attempt at reconciliation, offering himself up to the violence of his misguided friend. This ambiguous leap is the novel's crowning moment of symbolism, connecting Milkman directly to the legend of Solomon, his great-grandfather, who flew away to freedom. The novel ends on this note of profound ambiguity. If you surrendered to the air, you could ride it. This final line, devoid of a definitive outcome for Milkman, is a powerful and fitting conclusion. It does not explicitly state whether Milkman lives or dies, or whether he literally flies. Instead, it suggests a spiritual and existential triumph. Milkman's surrender to the air is a surrender to his true self, to his ancestral legacy, and to the inherent uncertainties of life. It signifies his acceptance of his past, his connection to the mythical history of his family, and his embrace of a freedom that transcends physical limitations. He has shed the chains of his father's materialism, his own self-absorption, and the fear of death, becoming truly free in spirit. This spiritual flight is the ultimate liberation, fulfilling the long-held desire for transcendence that began with Robert Smith's suicidal leap at the novel's opening. The fate of Guitar is also left open, but his trajectory is clear, trapped in a cycle of violence and misunderstanding. His quest for justice has led him to commit further injustice. He becomes a tragic figure, consumed by a rage that ultimately blinds him to the true meaning of liberation and connection. His inability to see beyond the material, and his rigid adherence to a violent ideology, serves as a cautionary tale, illustrating how the pursuit of retribution can lead to a perpetuation of suffering. Guitar's fate remains intertwined with Milkman's, but their paths have diverged irrevocably, representing the different responses to the systemic oppression faced by Black Americans. Ultimately, Song of Solomon concludes not with concrete answers, but with powerful questions and resonant themes. Milkman's journey is a testament to the enduring power of ancestral memory, the vital importance of understanding one's roots, and the transformative potential of self-discovery. He has learned to fly, not by physically leaving the ground, but by shedding the emotional and psychological burdens that kept him tethered to a joyless existence. He learns that true freedom comes from within, from embracing one's history, both its triumphs and its tragedies, and from connecting with the deep, spiritual currents of one's community and heritage. The ending suggests that Milkman has broken the curse of the dead name, transcending the spiritual death it implied and embracing the vibrant, complex, and enduring life of his ancestors. He becomes a symbol of the possibility of healing from historical trauma, of reclaiming identity, and of finding spiritual flight even amidst the harshest realities of the world. Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon stands as a monumental achievement in American literature, a rich and resonant epic that weaves together the personal with the mythic, the historical with the spiritual. Its enduring significance lies in its profound exploration of African American identity, masculinity, and the elusive quest for freedom. Morrison masterfully utilizes the motif of flight, transforming it from a literal escape from oppression into a powerful symbol of spiritual liberation and ancestral connection. The novel's exploration of family secrets, the weight of history, and the transformative power of self-discovery resonates deeply, challenging readers to consider how the past shapes the present and how individuals find their place within a broader cultural narrative. The intricate storytelling the lyrical prose, and the unforgettable characters, from the enigmatic pillate to the tragic guitar, create a narrative tapestry that is both challenging and deeply rewarding. Song of Solomon is not just a book to be read. It is a world to be inhabited, a song to be heard, offering timeless insights into the enduring human yearning for belonging, understanding, and the ultimate freedom of self.